You know what one of the most prevalent lies amongst civilians is that people will call out a lie on the Democrats, and that's Democrats lie all the time. That's true, that they lie all the time. And then people will say, well, all politicians lie. And that's a lie, and that's the Democrats' response that they've taught people to do when they get caught in a lie or called out on it. And they say, well, all politicians lie. Republicans do it too. Everybody, that's what they do. Politicians just lie. And then they get by with the lie. They refute the lie. You can't argue it with them because you'll tell them Republicans don't lie. And it's true that Republicans generally don't lie. They actually talk about real things. And they don't just make up all this stuff like the Democrats do. But they can try to qualify that. What the Democrats will do if you argue it with them, they'll take it all the way to, they'll bring up one clip of somebody talking about a number that was that number that they said it was today, but it changes tomorrow. And then they'll show tomorrow it's a different number and say they lied about it. And that's not a lie. It's a changing statistic or something. But Republicans don't lie. They believe in God, and Democrats want God out of the country. They want power. The Republicans have a very simple, and I'll say I lean Republican. You could say I'm partially Republican, but I consider myself independent, between Republican and Libertarian. So, but I stick up for the Republicans. I argue for the Republicans. So I'm not a registered Republican. I'm an independent voter. But the Republicans don't lie. They talk about real stuff. They want private property rights. They want to lower taxes for people, for everybody. And so how does that favor the rich over the poor? It doesn't. They wanted to, the tariffs, now some of them are split on that, but I don't understand what's wrong with tariffs. Tariffs is taxing business from other countries. It taxes billionaires from other countries who do business here. You know, if somebody's doing a business here, they're usually pretty well off. And so you're taxing them just like you would tax a business here. And so the Democrats don't want us taxing people from other countries, which can actually benefit us. And it's not charging them so much they can't handle it. It's just a little bit of, you know, the money they make, or it comes out of what they make or whatever they pay to do business here. It's just a little bit that it adds up when you have a lot of people doing business here. So it adds up because you got so many doing it. They just pay a few dollars, and then it comes out to $1 billion, right? Because you have so many people doing it. But so it's not hurting them. But to summarize what I was saying, though, is when they say all politicians lie, that's not true. Democrats lie all the time, and I mean consistently all the time. Literally all the time. Everything they do is a lie. I can't think of one thing they do that's not a lie nowadays. Can you name one thing the Democrats propose that makes our country safer? They don't even have anything they try to propose to try to make our country safer. Like if they do guns, talk about getting rid of guns now, which is really a trick. But now they've emptied every prison in the world. Or they've emptied prisons all around the world. I won't say every prison, but they've emptied prisons all around the world. I mean, there were cohorts in other countries emptying their prisons and sending them to America during the Biden administration and during the Obama administration. But definitely it happened a lot during the Biden administration. Okay, so they can't argue that it's safer not to have to take Americans, to disarm Americans now, when they've brought serial killers here, gangsters here that were in prison for killing people, and they did that on purpose for them to come here and attack America. And that's the Democrats. They're traitors for doing that. Literally traitors. They're trying to hurt our own country. If that's not a traitor, what is? But so the Democrats are, when I say they consistently lie all the time, I posted something showing the Nigerians having their heads chopped off that I found online, and I posted it to make people aware back in the beginning of Black Lives Matter, because these are black people, they're Christians, so the Democrats don't care. But you can't tell me the Democrats didn't know about that happening in Nigeria. And I kept telling them, if Black Lives Matter, why don't you care about these? They're sitting there chopping their heads off and then throwing them in the ditch on top of each other by the hundreds, like a moat, a huge ditch. And they took my post down, acted like I'm promoting violence or you can't show violence. I'm trying to inform people and say, let's go help these people. And you can't tell me that the Democrats who took my post down didn't know that was going on over there. They didn't care. And we finally have somebody who cares, Trump in office, which he couldn't do much during the first term because of COVID. And maybe because Democrats block that kind of information from being known, they know what's going on. They're helping it go on. And so they let Muslims be enslaved to these dictatorship countries because they won't let us speak about the truth and find the truth. Like if you say one fact that's wrong about Islam while you're learning it and you're trying to discuss it, they'll try to cancel you out and say you made an error. Misinformation. But they purposely inform people all day, every day, and they don't want you to talk because they want misinformation to continue. Because if you talk, even if you make an error or it's because you're inquiring, this is what I heard, or let's discuss it and find out what's true about what the religion's about, if it's a cult or if it's a real religion or not, And so we found out now that Islam was created by somebody who married a 9-year-old, but back then, in that culture, that wasn't considered bad, so he never repented of it or anything, and that's who created it. And then they get rewarded with this is from come to find out in prisoner of war type situation. So I had a misinformation error. Maybe I don't know if maybe they've tweaked the book now or something, but I had heard in one place 72 virgins they'd get rewarded for killing an unbeliever. But that's in the case of a prisoner of war. It's not just anywhere. That's what I've read that by Google. I've Google searched it and corrected, made sure I got it correct. But it is true. So they do get rewarded with a wife or husband, a mate that's a perfect mate, the same age in heaven if they kill an infidel in a certain situation and more. Right. So I don't know that I'm not going to say what situation, but it's still not necessarily it's not a trait. The Bible, you just believe in Christ. Anybody can go to heaven. People do go to heaven, I think, in Islam for holy things. I'm not studying the whole thing. I'm not good at remembering stuff anyway. I do my hardest best to remember stuff in the Bible, but I simplify it. But the bottom line is, there's no evidence of a God in Islam. But when I run into black Muslims in America, and they've contested me. I haven't been contested by Arab Muslims in America, but I've been contested several times by black Muslims in America. And when they do it, they are always arguing against Christianity, trying to tear down the Bible mostly. They never talk much about Islam. And I've never wanted to, really, it's funny, I probably almost never talked about, well, what's in your book? What does your book say? And then I don't know whether I'd believe them because they lie about the Bible. But what they do is they'll argue that Christianity's a young religion. Sometimes that's not been around long. There was religions written way before Christianity ever existed. And I'll be like, my answer to that, if they let me speak over them, is that the Bible, there might have been some stuff written, but it was destroyed in the flood. But Christianity wasn't called Christianity yet, but Christianity technically survived the flood. And so then it was written after the flood. And so because Noah trusted God and they created a boat. So Christianity survived it and those other ones didn't because Christianity had a real God. That's evidence right there. But the problem is they're acting like it's not an old enough religion. But Islam was not created until between 610 and 656 years after Christ was here, I think. I don't know if that's after his birth or after his death. But that's when they finished writing the book was 656. 656 years after, before, right now it's 2026. So that was 656 after Christ. So that is, and some of the writings are based off of, some of them are based off the Bible, so it's kind of like it's not plagiarizing all the way because it changes stuff, but it talks about forgiveness. He's copying a lot of that stuff from the Bible, those ideas. And so it's basically a cult. It's not a proven religion. It's a cult because they don't have any proven God. There's no evidence of God. Of course, you have religions that aren't necessarily a cult. You could call Catholicism a religion. I didn't want to get into all that. But, because here, let me get back to the main point, because I want to close out and keep it short somewhat. The main point was that when they lie about, and say all politicians lie, that's to shut up the argument. And they'll go and do like I said earlier. Boy, I remember. They'll disqualify any argument you have if you go into arguing that. So they kind of silence me. When somebody says that, I know, okay, they're not going to listen to anything. They say everything in politics is a lie. But the Democrats don't have a plan to help Americans. They talk about taxing the rich, but they don't tax the rich who come from other countries to do business here. So, and then they use them to create babies here and take them back to a communist country. In the case of China, they've done this. And raise them in China, teach them communism, and bring them back here to vote because they have a dual citizenship because they were born here. They make friends with billionaires like that, and they don't get taxed apparently. I can't say that for sure, but in certain ways, they don't get taxed if they brought up business here. They don't get tariffs, which is a tax. All right, so I don't know how all that works, but they play tricks. All they do is play tricks and lies all the time. But they consistently, here's the part I forgot. I'm not going to go back to the religion discussion, but they consistently lie. This, I forgot to say this. They consistently lie when, for instance, I started, and I didn't finish this point. I posted about Nigeria back in 2013 or so, somewhere, and they knew. The Democrats knew about it. But the point is, they took my post down so people wouldn't know. And I've been on that this long, but what do I get? 10 views a day. I have 5,000 people on my page, close to it. And some of my posts get 10 views a day or less because they don't let people see my page. That's constantly lying. That's Democrats constantly lying by keeping truth tellers out of the loop, so where people can't see them as little as possible. They don't want anybody seeing the truth. But I keep posting the truth because the best I see it, I don't get it perfect, and I'm not the best speaker or all that stuff, but it's good to post truth because one person sees it, they share it with another, and sometimes that other person shares it with a lot of people, and they have the ability to. And so I keep posting, and for my records too, I try to save the posts and share them for myself even, and you know, I'm learning different ways to. You know, I'm not the guy that wanted to be on stage or talk or anything else, but I'm learning ways to be able to communicate. And I might do it in cities someday. I have more confidence or whatever. I'm a person who struggled in life, but as I get older, I might be able to share all that stuff locally. And sometimes that's the best way to do it. It's not easy because you got people, I'm telling you, they act like, oh, Republicans should be nice to Democrats and this and that. Well, in the real world out there, some of those on the ground, there's Democrats. They're threatening to hurt you and harm you and telling you to shut up and we don't want to hear it and all this kind of stuff. But then they'll start preaching their stuff real loud. And so, and I'm not one of those that want to preach, be a street preacher. Loud, you know, the Jehovah's Witnesses do it real quiet. If I have a tactic where I teach or preach in the streets, it'd be more teaching style and just informing people. And if I do that, that might be something I would do just because I think it can be effective as far as getting the word out to people in real life that don't believe the media, don't see the media, and the certain subjects aren't on the media. So I'll pick a topic that I think is important at the time and just share the topic. But I might do something like that in the future, and I might do it in different cities. So that's an idea. I may go to nursing homes. I may, you know, of course, are they still voting in there? But I would do that for spiritual encouragement. But I may do little things like that, though. But there's nurses that work there. They can learn a thing or two from me. Being an informed person, a person who stays informed and continues to try to stay informed. If I feel like I have good information and could go share it, I will. So I don't know how regular I'll do it, but I'll do it periodically. But they're consistently lying when they're consistently blocking the truth. You know, so that's the bottom line there. And they do that. They do it by the millions. And now that people caught them in their lies and found out they're lying for years and making it look like the Republicans are racist, and making it look like the Republicans supported slavery because they're patriotic. Republicans are patriotic because they ended slavery. So they've been called out on all that, and they've dodged it and not talk about it anymore. They've tried to kick me off Facebook for saying evolution is real racism creation. They called that hate speech. And they're the ones doing hate speech and calling people racist who are not racist. All right, so I'm telling you who's really racist. And they were going to kick me off before Trump got in office. And now he's been in office, and I've been able to post more without them blocking my posts and stuff. But they were going to kick me off for a long time for posting that, and I couldn't talk about it. But it's key to recognize what real racism is instead of all this fake. You keep proposing and lying about who's racist. You're not helping racism. You're not stopping racism because you're only stopping the people who are not racist. You need to stop real racism by talking about where it is. Evolution is real racism. And you need to call out Islam. Don't hate Muslims because they're slaves to Democrats, really, silencing our speech. And so it is true that a lot of Muslims have joined groups and they're dangerous. But you speak against Islam, false religion. You speak against other false religions, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormonism. And I don't know I forget how to define cult versus false religion, but I would guess that Islam's technically really a cult because it was made up so late. I think Mormonism was made up later on, but anyway, I'll go into that some other day, another study. But I guess I'm out of time, so I'm not going to conclude this the way I wanted. But all right, that's it.